You guys may know her as Bay from the Bobby Bones Show, Raymundo's wife. This is Laura. Laura, thanks for coming on. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Are you nervous? This tends to be a theme when I bring any of my friends into the podcast world.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do many of these, that's for sure. So it's more the video. I'm like, oh, hi.
Well, you look beautiful on video.
Thank you.
And we do video everything. So if you want to go watch this on YouTube, you can totally do that. But Laura, I'm really excited to have you joined, and I'm feel really honored that you're willing to talk and share your story because your story is super inspirational.
Thank you.
And I don't want to get to where I'm just talking, so I'm going to let you kind of start to share your story. The reason we have you here is to share your journey from getting diagnosed with breast cancer and now being in remission for multiple years.
Almost 7.
Yeah. And the whole journey of it. But start us from the beginning and just share like your kind of basic cancer story. Not that it's basic, but you know what I mean.
I get you.
Simple version.
So mine started, really, we have to go back to high school for mine. So when I was 17, I found a lump in my breast, and I told my mom, and she was just like, we need to get this checked out. And so she already, being over 40, had a doctor. And so we went to him and they checked it. They did a biopsy of it, and it was called a fibroadenoma. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But because of that, I kept having to get checked because I kept having these pop up. So throughout the years, I kept having more and more fibroadenomas pop up. So I was going sometimes every 3 months, sometimes every 6 months, just to kind of check up from 17 till 31. And so I was going in for a 6-month appointment when I was 31 years old, and I almost didn't go. This is the craziest story. I almost didn't go because they changed our insurance, and it was going to be like $100 to go. And I'm like, I've been going every 6 months. I can put it off for like whatever. But something told me like, just go. So I paid the $100. I'm like, whatever. I'm in there with my same doctors, and they're filling around. And they found a spot, which I still don't even realize it at the time. And because I just feel like, oh, it's another fibroadenoma they're finding. And they have an in-office ultrasound. And I remember she did an ultrasound, and I looked up at that, and I was like, because I could tell you right now, if you have a fibroadenoma, give me an ultrasound, I'll let you know. Like, this was not that. Like, it did not look like.
You knew what those looked like.
Yeah. And so she walked out of the room and went to talk to the doctor and came right back in. And she was like, can you come in tomorrow for a biopsy? Which this place is like one of the most popular places in Nashville. That doesn't happen. Like, it would take weeks and stuff. So I was like, okay, that's how I already was mentally preparing myself that this is something different. And it was. And it ended up being breast cancer. Ended up at stage 3 breast cancer, which we didn't find that out until after surgery. They were thinking it was probably just stage 1, maybe stage 2. And that ended up being stage 3.
So as you're going through this, are you angry because you're like, I've been doing these checkups for 3 to 6 months routinely. You've been doing everything that you needed to do. And then you find out that it's stage 3 just in that short amount of time.
And it wasn't one of like the super aggressive ones. That's something that I still have to deal with mentally. I'm not going to lie. There's a few different things. I want to first say that for some reason, I never asked why me. Like, I never was like a why me person. I've asked that like when my parents, which we can get into later, have had cancer, and I'm like, why them? But I've never was like, why me? I do though struggle with why did they not catch it sooner when I was doing everything I was supposed to do? And after I had surgeries, when they told me that I was going to need chemo, and I remember going into my oncologist, and she was like, the first time I met her, she was like, I looked through all the, she's like, I don't understand. I don't understand why this is this thick and you are, found out at stage 3. So it's a hard pill to swallow. But then I also look at it as, thank God that I went in that day, because I didn't feel it. I felt it after she felt it, but me going every 6 months, I wasn't trying to feel around as much as I should have. And so thank God she found it. So I go back and forth as in like how can I swallow this pill of I did everything I was supposed to do, but also she saved my life. So you can't really get too mad about that. So
now I want to get into more of your cancer journey in the story, but before we start that, I would love to hear you mention your family and the cancer history that you have in your family, which I also imagine is just tough on multiple levels, that you had experienced this as a family and then you're going through it. So walk me through that side of this a little bit.
Well, with the breast cancer part of it, come to find out like later, way later, I didn't realize, I guess my great grandmother, we think may have had breast cancer, but we still aren't 100% sure with that one. But my mom got diagnosed with breast cancer a year before me, and hers was stage 1. And so they did, what's called a lumpectomy. So it's like with me, I did a mastectomy where they took all the tissue and everything. With hers, they just take the tissue and the surrounding of the cancer. And then they did they did radiation. So and then she's, thank God, been, maybe going on 9 years cancer free. But also that was also a weird, I don't want to say blessing, but we went to the same doctor. So they did start kind of being a little more like, okay, we need to treat you a little bit better. And they were telling me even then that, maybe when I turned 35 that we need to do an MRI just to make sure that there's nothing in there, since my mom had it. So I think maybe that was, maybe good at, as far as like helping them be more concerned with some, just be like, oh, these are fibroadenomas or whatever. So that was the mom's side. My dad ended up having melanoma, and his was, again, it wasn't during my treatment. It was right after I finished. I'll never forget. I just finished all of my treatment. Like, so the chemo, the radiation, and my mom was like telling me, it was like the end of the year, right after Christmas. And my mom was like, your dad has melanoma. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was supposed to be celebrating the end of this, and now my dad has melanoma. So it's different cancer, but it's, he's done really well with it. It came back, but he got it taken care of again. And so he's, knock on wood, doing great now. But yeah, it's like my brother, he's like, I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop. Like, what is happening?
No, he's got to keep that shoe up.
I know. But yeah, so that's like the family history. And then we could go back way further, where it's like my grandfather died of cancer, my grandmother died of cancer, but it wasn't, my grandmother was lung cancer, my grandfather, I think it was esophageal.
Wow.
So yeah, we have cancer all in our family, but this was definitely not so much breast cancer until a year before I got diagnosed.
There's so much with this, but I just have to imagine that in the hardest way possible that it helped you.
Yeah.
That your family had gone through it, and you guys had really been, unfortunately, adjusted to that.
Especially my mom. I'll never forget, like right after I had the biopsy, I went home and I had it on like a Thursday or Wednesday, one of those days. I remember I went home, and then I do not suggest this. Don't do it. We call Dr. Googled. And I remember seeing from the picture in my head of that ultrasound, I was going through and looking at every picture and of online, like cancer, not cancer. And I could tell, like, okay, I knew that weekend that I had cancer. And my mom was like, no, you don't, whatever. And I remember going in that Monday and getting found out, and I was like, I told you. I had it. But I remember I just told Mom, I was like, I told her, I was like, I'm not strong like you, because she just went through it. I'm like, I'm not strong because I'd never felt strong. Every little thing was such a huge thing to me. I definitely deal with anxiety. So that was like up to 1,000. I remember just being like, I'm not strong. And the reason I say that is because I'm stronger than I ever knew. I'm stronger than it's just crazy what you can do, and what your like mind makes you think that maybe you can't, maybe you're not strong. And so for my reason to say this is one thing I did want to say, come on here, is that anyone that's going through this, that's feeling you're not strong, everyone's strong. You just have to feel, you just have to be presented, unfortunately, with something like this to make you feel like, wow, I got through this. I got through all of this. I'm on the other side of this. And another thing is the craziest thing, but cancer is the best thing that ever happened to me, which is the weirdest thing to say. but to look at the world differently was.
And looking at you, Laura, I would have never known that you felt that way. I would have never known that you were sitting there battling with this. That I can't do this, or that I'm not strong enough to handle this. Because you are. You're an incredibly inspiring person, and watching you live your life, you are confident and you live your life fully. So I love that you shared that piece, because perception is reality, right? And what we see on social media, we often get really caught up in this idea that this is who this person is, without understanding that they're also human, and they can crumble too when things happen. Now, you say that cancer is the best thing that happened to you. Is it because of the strength, or is there more to that?
I never want it again. So I do want to say that. I would never want that. But what for me personally, it's given me the craziest outlook on life, to where I dealt with anxiety. So any little thing was just the hugest thing to me. And now that I've had the hugest thing, those little things are easier to be like, whatever, that's nothing. We can deal with that, whatever. Not to say I don't have my moments, because I do.
Again, you're human.
I'm human, but it really has changed my life. It's opened your mind to see things in the world that really do matter. And it's not so much, I don't know. It's just it just makes you so grateful. It makes you grateful for your family, makes me grateful for my husband. It makes me, it's the best thing that ever happened to me in the weirdest, horrible way.
Sometimes the worst things that happen to us do just change our lives for the better. Unfortunately, you never want that for anyone, but it makes you who you are. And it's now a part of your story, which is why you were strong enough to come on and share it with other people. When we were talking about your family too, I feel like you're the perfect person to ask this, because you've experienced personally, you've experienced it with your family. When you're dealing with someone going through cancer, what are the things that you can do, one, to support them, and one that you definitely probably shouldn't do?
Okay. So I'm glad you asked that, actually, because this is one of the things, and it's so random, but one of the favorite things that anyone did for me was Ray, shout out husband, but he made me a playlist of songs that from when you're having a hard time to listen to. And that's something you could do for any of your friends that just big songs. Like my favorite one, by the way, is Fight Song, Rachel Platten. That was my song the whole time going through it. But there's so many amazing songs you can put in, and songs is therapy, And so that was one of the things you can do to help the people you love. Another thing, everyone's different with the way they went through it. When my mom went through it, she was more conservative. She didn't want a lot of people to know. She, just wanted to get through it and whatever. Whereas I was as soon as I got it, I was like, God gave me this, and I do think for a reason. And because I had, this is actually a crazy story, but I got to tell it. So when I was, I remember it was probably November, December, the year I got diagnosed in February. So it was November, December before that. And I remember praying that, because I just felt like I was in a job where I wasn't really helping people that much. I mean, I was, but I just felt like I needed to do more. Be careful what you pray for. Because I remember praying, I wish that I could have a job or something that I'd be able to help people more. And fast forward to February, and I get diagnosed with breast cancer. And I'm like, I hear you. Not what I was expecting, but okay.
This is not exactly a job. I feel like some messaging got lost.
Yeah. But I do. So as soon as I got diagnosed, in my view, I was like, I am wanting, I know this is for a reason. I'm 31 years old. It's unheard of for me. I just didn't hear of it. And I wanted to share. So to me, sharing my story was super important. That being said, when you come about helping people or what to do, some people are more private with things. But for me personally, being treated normally, being not really looked as a sick person, just kind of ask me to still do things. You want to go have brunch? Heck yeah, I do. I mean, just kind of treat them normally. And Uber Eats gift cards is another great one, because especially if someone's going through chemo like I did, you never know what you're going to feel like as far as what you want. I pretty much lived off cheese fries, which I don't recommend. It was not great, but that's literally what I felt like. And I was like, cheese fries and burgers, give them to me. So, but literally having, you never know. So I literally would be able to just, people would give me gift cards. And I could just go on there and order what I felt like that day. And because Ray is not a cook. So, like that was, bless his heart. I remember he made me a fried egg and it was not fried. It was like gooey. And I'm like, oh God, Uber Eats help me. Sure you
missed a piece of this. You're like, there's a lot of things getting missed in translation here.
Yeah. And then for the things not to do, I think anything you're doing that you are, you think you're doing with the good of heart is great. But I do say one of the things that's hard for any cancer patient going through it is being like, oh, I know so-and-so that had it and she died or he died. And that's not where you need your mind at during these times. And even though it's, of course, unfortunate, and of course you feel bad and whatever, and I'm sure the people are trying to help, but you get so much of that. And it's like, that's putting me down a whole different mindset that I'm trying to be positive and be just in this and like know that I'm going to kick its butt, and when I hear that someone died, it just doesn't really help with that. So maybe keep those to a minimum.
This is good. It's fun. Well, it's funny because you never think about, again, when you hear somebody go through something really hard and they say it, all you want to do is try and find words to help them. And then words come out, you're like, that probably wasn't the best thing that I could have said. But we don't know. We don't handle grief in talks of things that could potentially cause death very well.
No.
We're not sensitive in that capacity that it just makes everybody very uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
So they kind of blurt things out. So it's good to sometimes make sure, just filter it through the brain a little bit before it comes out.
Exactly. And I'll also say, something people don't realize is you can lose friends during this treatment, because there was a friend of mine that she was a pretty good friend and she just kind of stopped talking to you. And I'm like, okay. And then we ran into her like not even a year later and she was like, I'm just sorry. It was really hard for me. And I'm like, okay. And like, she's like, and I get it and I respect it, but like be there for those people that are going through it. Cause we need you. And that's the best thing me sharing my story, I'm so glad I did, because I had so much support, which I really think is what got me through it. So,
well, I think as you mentioned, cancer helped you in a lot of ways. I think it helped you filter through some friends, because that was not a friend that was clearly going to be there for anything important in your life.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that it showed you the way in the terms of who the people are that you really need.
Absolutely.
Sounds like it helped you there. And this is kind of a tough, weird question to ask. If it's uncomfortable, tell me. But when you are sitting there and you get diagnosed and there is this possibility that you may not make it, do you have to constantly fight that battle of that being in your head?
I still do, to be honest. Sorry.
No, it's okay. And we absolutely do not have to go down this road.
No, it's okay. But yeah, I still, I still go to my I still go to my 6 months appointments, and it's always scary. And so yeah, it's still in your brain. And sorry,
I hold your hand to it. And
I didn't know it was gonna cry, but it is. It's definitely all hard. I'll be honest. I'll be honest. During it, during it, I was way better. I didn't really think of it. I did a little bit, but it wasn't super on my mind. And I actually just sent our friend Morgan this whole like Mel Robbins situation, like this podcast, because she had someone on that was like explaining this. And when you're going through it, your brain pretty much just like shuts off anything like that, and you're just surviving and you're trying to get through it. And I'll never forget my last day of chemo. My oncologist nurse, she came to me and I loved her. She was awesome, always funny and great. And she came to me and it's my last chemo. She wanted to be like, yeah, like, like absolutely, like, let's go celebrate. And she came to me, she goes, I want you to know that it's totally normal to, after you leave here, to feel scared. And I was like, what? And I get it, because the reasoning is you're actively treating yourself. So as much as chemo sucks, you go to chemo and you're knowing you're fighting it.
There's a hope to that.
There's a hope to that. So then after it, you just have to pray and hope that it's going to stay gone. And with mine being stage 3, which they found out after my surgery, that was a tough pill to swallow, because obviously it was very progressed. It was in my lymph nodes. And so that was something that I'm really glad she told me about so that I could prepare myself to have the feelings. And I don't know. I just think that's something that a lot of people don't realize. And I'm glad that's why I sent that to Morgan, because her sister's going through it. And I was like, I just want you to know that this is normal. Like these feelings are normal. So yeah, I never really felt it going through it. I feel it. I still live my life. Like, you never know. Each appointments, I've pretty much lived my life for every 6 months. And that's horrible, but it's just the truth. Like, you get that great checkup and you're like, good, I'm good for 6 months. And that's just kind of how you live, unfortunately.
Well, and I'm really glad that you shared this, even though I know that was really hard for you.
Sorry, I don't know.
No, that's totally normal. I'm asking you about something that's really hard. And having those emotions shows to the people, anybody who may be going through it or just got a diagnosis, whatever it may be, that feeling that is real.
Right.
And having those experiences is a real part of this, that we get so laser focused on helping people fight it, and we help them to get their way through, and we send food and we do things to help them. But what happens after?
Yeah.
And that's what you're speaking to.
Yeah.
Is this, hearing you say, like, I really live 6 months to 6 months is heart-wrenching. I hate that for you. But I understand that that's part of your experience. And again, you've come to very beautiful terms with the way that this has happened in your life. But the fact that is how you have to have your perspective, like, that hurts my heart for you.
Thank you. And again, days, I mean, it's not like it's every day. Like, so literally like the week before going to an appointment, I'm just like a mess usually. But it's just, again, I wouldn't take it back. I really wouldn't. And so take that how you want to.
No, it's okay. I seriously, thank you for sharing that piece of your heart and that experience. I don't think you're alone in that feeling. And I think you saying those words is more powerful than
Yeah.
for a lot of people.
Myself too.
Hopefully it helps you heal a little piece of that. And, it's funny, when Ray had come to me, he's like, Laura's going to be on your podcast. I was like, yes, Ray, I know. I sent her the text. Like, we had this conversation. And he goes, yeah, everybody always wants her to share her story, but like, she's choosing you. And I was like, well, my hope is that she can just send this podcast. And then she doesn't have to keep reliving over and over again all of these moments.
Right. Yeah. I first of all, I just love what you're doing. I think it's so important, and I do love to share my story. Like I said, it's just I'm so much easier to write. I'm a better writer, or better just like random story than it's like they sit down with it, because it does make you go back, especially right now. I'm a month, not even a month from being my 7 years. So it's just, it's always in my feels. And like, I feel like every time someone wants to ask me, it's usually around breast cancer awareness month. And I'm like, no, like, I'm so sorry. I know that's horrible, but I'm so like, that's like the worst month for me in the worst way.
No, really though, because again, when you're sharing these parts of your story, it's bringing up everything all over again.
Yeah.
It's like asking somebody to relive one of the hardest parts of their life multiple times over. And as much as you want to be an advocate for this and share your story, it doesn't mean it's not hard to do so.
Right.
And I think we forget that, because we can look at you and say, yes, you're a survivor, and yes, you've gone through this. And correct me if that's the wrong terminology to use.
You're right.
But again, we're missing this piece of the person after it happens.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, you did it. It's done.
And I think it's done. Yeah. That's, I hear that a lot from my cancer survivor friends. It is kind of like you have a celebration and it's just kind of done, which is great. That's how it should be. But then the person mentally, I'm 7 years out and I just cried. Like, what? But it's just like you deal with it every day. I mean, every day. This morning I was feeling around in my boobs. Like, it's something I do multiple times a day, every day. Like, feel my boobs all the time. Like, but I do, like, because it's like I want to just know if there's something that's there that shouldn't be, and it's something that you do. So like, yeah, treatment's over, but it's never over.
this is now forever part of your life. And that's the point that I wanted to make sure was really driven home for people who have people like you in their life, or maybe they're about to have this experience and they just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. But thank you for sharing that side. I want to focus on some more happy parts of this. You know, I love who you are and who you've become as a person too. And I think this is a huge testament to your story. But now, like, we'll focus on the positive parts of this, who you are now. What do you feel like is like the thing that's really helped you from this to be who you are today?
Again, it comes to the strength. It really does. And I think that to realize that I'm not weak, you know, and it's like, that's eye-opening to me, because I really don't know why. I just never, I think because it's just, I am an emotional little person. I still am, but I feel like I just never realized how strong I am. And now I realize if it's going in for a job interview or whatever, it's like, that's nothing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can do that. I can you know, ask me what my weakest strength is. I'll tell you it's nothing. Like, you know what I mean? But it's literally like, I feel like it just gives you I just felt like it gave me strength, and I needed it more than I realized. So I think that's honestly the thing that I took most away from it.
And I do feel like you have a newfound confidence as well that came with that.
Yeah.
It's more this kind of like, don't give a crap, F off attitude, because you're like, you think you can put me to something?
Oh, yeah.
Trust me, I've been through it.
Poor Ray.
What was that like with you and Ray and him being such a big support system for you?
I mean, I'm going to try not to cry on this one too, because so most of my treatments with chemo, Ray was having to work because it was during the mornings. So my dad, who always is working, but he was able to go with me to every appointment. And I'll never forget, at one of our appointments, we're waiting for my doctor to come in, and my dad just looks at me. And again, this is a man, he's my hero. And so don't think less of him for this, because it's something that stuck with me that makes me appreciate Ray. So we were waiting for my doctor to come in. My dad was like, he was like, I want you to know, like, and my mom and my dad have been married for 50 plus years. And he was like, I want you to know, like, I don't know if I could have done it with your mom if we were just dating at the time, and her having to go through this because of such how crazy and how emotional, how deep it is. And so he goes, for the fact that Ray not only like, I mean, I was bald, you know, my face was fat from steroids. I had no boobs at some point. Like, I mean, you know, now I do, but thank you, Dr. Unker. But like, I literally, like, you know, was not cute, you know, and he stuck with me. And that's such a testament, that I knew, like, from my dad saying it though, just made it so much more real, that like my dad, who's my hero, was like, I don't know if I could have done this back in the day, like if we were in the same situation. And I'm like, wow. So I, ever since then, of course, I mean, Ray, you know, we had our hard times at the beginning, but he's amazing. Like, he's literally, I just love him so much. He'll do anything for me. He's such a supporter. Yeah, I just love him. Yeah. So it's just made us way closer, obviously.
You know, and speaking of Ray, you guys, obviously, if you're just listening to this, just picture this. Ray did come with Laura for this podcast, but he's actually sitting downstairs in my living room just watching football. So just picture that while this is happening. He really is an amazing guy.
I called him yesterday because he was laughing. He was like posting about some stupid reel I did. And I was like, you're being like Spencer Pratt, like with Heidi right now. I was like, will you quit?
Honestly, we all need a Spencer Pratt.
I know, we do. So I'm very happy. Even though he's crazy, I'm about a reel.
At what point were you guys in your dating kind of light?
I was thinking about it before we came over here. So we dated 6 years before we got engaged, which is another whole story. So that was in like 2020. So let me think. When did we start dating? It was like when I was like 27. So we were probably 4 years into it. So a while, but still, you know, he could have left. He didn't have to stay. And I don't know how he did. I just really don't. Like, it's crazy to think about, because he was still young. I was still young. Like, I was 31, so that makes he was 32. Yeah, he was 32 at the time. So I don't know. It's crazy.
Wow.
I know.
But still, I love you guys together. You guys worked out for a reason.
Yeah.
Beyond all of this, like you guys are meant to be together. And I do have to ask you, because I know there's gonna be some Bobby Bone Show listeners tuning into this. What is your perspective on Ray on the Bobby Bone Show?
He's an idiot. But the best guy. Like, I love him because he's just, what you see is what you get. Like, literally what you hear him on the radio is exactly how he acts at home. Like, I mean, he's loud. He's so loud. Everything he does is loud. Like, he sneezes loud. He coughs loud. He like blows his nose loud. Like, everything is so loud, but it's like endearing in a way because he's just Ray. His laugh is ridiculous.
Laura, you're like blinded by love.
I don't know. I know. Well, I'm saying it all, and I'm like, the person thinking like, why are you? But no, but he also, what people don't see all the time is that he's just such a good guy. Like, he would do anything for anybody. He loves his family. He loves my family. My mom and dad he can't do anything wrong. Like, anytime he does, I'm like, say something, they're like, I'm on Ray's side. I'm like, really? Like, he's just an amazing guy. He really is.
You know, I was giving him a hard time because I keep seeing on your both of your guys' Instagram stories how your dad's always over fixing things. I'm
always.
like, Ray,
he can't fix anything.
Dude, this is partially your job. You know that, right?
No, I'm like, God forbid, like, please, Dad, never die. Like, because I don't know what we're going to do. We'll have to like do that tackle or whatever that app is. Like, cause he literally, he didn't even know how to put windshield wiper fluid in his car. And I had to, I knew that. Like, I was like, how do you not know that? Like, it's just literally the smallest things. I mean, if he hung one picture and my mom's still at our old apartment, and she was, every time she'd walk in, she's like, oh God, like, it was so bad. It was so bad. It was like when y'all had those plaques or whatever, and he did my mom had him done, and then he put one just like other side. It was just horrible. And so I don't know.
So for what he lacks in his ability to fix things, or really do anything around the house, he makes up for it in being supportive and loving
and laugh. He's a comedian. Like,
is he clickbait Ray at the house?
Clickbait. Oh, I mean,
I don't know if you've heard this, but
I have
he is
heard
known
that.
as being clickbait Ray.
I don't think he's clickbait Ray, but he is like, he'll tell a story to me and I'm like, okay, now like, don't elaborate and tell me like the truth, you know. But that's all of you guys, not you necessarily, but in radio, it's like, you know, you tell a story, but then it's got to be like, you know, kind of put some like bows and stuff on it and make them sparkly. Yeah. I'm always like, okay, but no, like that. And I love when like he's telling a story about like something me and him did to like one of our friends. And I'm like, I was there for that. And like, no, I did not say that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, will you stop? So yeah, I mean, I don't know about clickbait. I'm like, why do I keep saying that? Clickbait Ray, but he's definitely likes to tell some stories.
He really does. He even just still, it's funny. I often tell him, I'm like, Ray, I cannot tell if you're being serious with me or if this is our sarcastic moment. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. I mean, same. But that's me with anyone. I'm so gullible with anything. I just want to trust what everyone's saying. So I'm always like, what? Like, and they're like, no.
Oh no, those boys at the show had made me question everything.
I know.
I used to believe everything. Now I question.
Now you're like,
everything. What? There's nothing that I believe.
This is true. Yeah, you're surrounded by it.
Well, I don't want to keep you forever, and you guys deserve to keep living it up. Brunch plans, all the fun things.
Yeah.
And Ray will kill me if we keep going, which we could. We could talk.
I know, we really could.
He would be napping on the couch. He'd be like, dude, what did I come over here for? I do want to end on maybe a little piece of advice who you have for someone who is going through what you went through, or maybe just found out about it, or they're past the phase, they're in your phase. Mm-hmm. Just advice in general.
So especially for someone going through it, always get a second opinion. First of all, I even went with the first opinion I had with everything, but I wanted just to make sure, like, and when I got that second opinion and it matched my first one, it made me feel better. I was more confident in my treatment. So that, but also just if you're going through it, the best thing you can do is take it one day at a time. You don't want to look too far in the future. You just don't. You want to get through that day. And when you do, you'll be shocked at how fast it goes. And then you're like, okay, like I'm on the other side of this. What just happened? Because you were taking that one day at a time. So take it one day at a time. Don't do Dr. Google like I did. At the same time, I'm happy in a way I did because it just gave me a lot of information. I know way too much about all the different types of breast cancer. So if you have any questions, ask me. But yeah, I think staying away from internet and more focusing on, just day by day. Because I mean, if you start looking at, which I did, 5-year survival rates, for mine was, I think it had like 75% of people will still be alive, and I'm year 7. So I'm like, don't do that, because that did not help mentality. So don't look at any of that. Every person and every cancer is different. So just because someone has the same type of cancer as you, it doesn't mean you're going to end up the same way they're going to end up. So just take it day by day. And that's what I still do, basically. It's day by day.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice for everything.
Yeah.
But also, especially this.
Yeah.
To just focus on living in the present moment and getting through each day as you can. Sometimes we really love to get caught up in what could be in the future and what's happening in the past, and we kind of forget what's happening in this present moment.
Exactly.
So that's really great advice all the way around. And I do want you to mention too, I know we were going to end on that, but I wanted to ask you, are you happy? I know, because this is such a very big topic, especially around breast cancer, is getting your breast done after. Are you really happy that you did that? Like, was that probably the most helpful decision after?
Can I tell you, first of all, the hardest thing I did was lose my hair. That was the hardest thing I did, which just sounds absolutely insane. The easy, like the whole like taking, like doing the mastectomy, that was like an easy decision to me, because I saw the doctor I was going to, and I was like, the plastic surgeon, and I was like, it's amazing how far they've come with reconstruction surgery is insane. Like for mine in general, I was able to do skin sparing. So basically I still have my nipples. I still have all the things. They just scooped it all out. Like if you look at an orange, you scoop out the orange and you keep this stuff. Like it's so advanced and so amazing. And they just would take fat transfer and have it's what they can do now is insane. Like you would never know that I even had it. And so that to me, wasn't a hard decision, and I'm very glad I did it. Because I mean, I'm still young. It'd be different, I guess, if I was probably 80 and I haven't like, just take them. I don't need reconstruction. But no, I'm very glad I did it. Each to their own. I respect every decision. You have to do what's right for you. But for me, very glad I made that decision.
Okay, I'm really glad that you mentioned that part too, because I do think that's a big, big topic that comes with breast cancer as well. So Laura, thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing your story. I'm really sorry that we got a little emotional.
I'm sorry I cried.
Don't be sorry. I'm sorry that I made it happen. But I'm really, really happy that you just shared so many pieces of your heart and who you are as a person, because you're fabulous.
You are too.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you.